Hello and welcome to today's case study of how to handle a clingy kid. I'm so glad you are here today. Welcome, welcome. I'm going to hit record because I'm also going to do this as a podcast episode. As you can see, I've got, pardon me, I've got my podcast rig set up today because I think that someday this might be a future podcast episode, and those are really fun to do. So welcome, welcome. If you are just getting here, I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes to kind of get set up, get in the chat. And actually, what I'm going to do right now, since I'm such a smarty pants and I know how to use YouTube chat, I am going to pop out the chat so that I can see it. Oh, I'm not sure that that's actually what I meant. So hold on. Nope, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay, gonna give this another try here. Can I see the chat? I just want to see it. How do I see the chat? Oh, there it is. Okay. I believe I can see the chat. Okay. So I am just going to type something into the chat and see if anybody sees that. There it is. Okay, good. All right. Now I am officially going to welcome you. I guess the last couple of welcomes have been unofficial, but I'm really, really glad that you are here for this. Welcome, welcome to our case study on how to handle a clingy child. I've actually got 3 separate case studies that I'm going to share with you today. And I am Karen Locke-Culp. I am the creator of WeTurnedOutOK.com and a whole bunch of resources to help you raise young kids. I'm a child development expert and a parent coach. And in that capacity, I really can be very helpful, helping parents know like why their kids do the crazy things that they do and how to handle them. And I'm going to teach you 3 ways to handle your child's clingy behavior, particularly if you have a young child, although one of these case studies gets into an older child. So I can see that people are joining. If you have a question for me, definitely type it into the chat, and I will be looking at those questions at the end of today's case study. So why are kids clingy? I think that's really a good place to start. It can seem nutty that they are that way. Like one day, 1 minute, your child isn't clingy, right? And then the next day they are crying when you leave daycare. They don't want to be held by anyone else. They're afraid to be in a part of their house by themselves, like even in their own rooms. They get scared if they look up and you're not there anymore. They can be very, very upset, anxious, worried, hanging on to you. You know, this is once you get to say 2, 3, 4 years old, sometimes it's hard to get a moment, even like in the bathroom by yourself, because your child just wants to be with you all the time. It can be super, super frustrating. And if that is a thing that's happening for you, I want to talk about it today. That's what we're here for. So kids are clingy for a couple reasons. Well, I guess I should say there are some stages of clinginess. So really, kids are clingy because that's just where they are developmentally. So as a child, you know, when a baby is born, they don't have the sort of evolutionary need to be to want to stay with a caregiver. But once they start moving around, our brains have built for us a wonderful mechanism to keep us when we're small from wandering off. And that is this kind of stranger anxiety that we see in, say, 18. It really kind of hits its peak sort of 18 months, 2 years. And that is, again, when kids are doing their running around, when they're becoming more and more independent and able to kind of walk away from us. So we've built ourselves in our brains a fantastic way to stop that from happening, to stop human beings from wandering away from their caregivers, and that is stranger anxiety. So the first stages that we see of this have to do with that kind of stranger anxiety. Oh my gosh, I need to be near this person who takes care of me, and I'm afraid to be away from them, or I'm afraid to be, for example, taken by somebody else, held by somebody else. I don't want to go to anyone else. I want to stay with my mom or my dad. And the other way that we see this is with our child's developing imagination. So as they get a little bit older, out of that 18-month, 2-year-old kind of toddler, when they're learning to walk, when they're learning to run, when they can get away from us, the next thing that happens is their imaginations start to develop. So a child, for example, who at 2 was perfectly comfortable in her own room, as we will discuss a little in just a few minutes, suddenly is terrified to be in their room alone. Their mom notices like a sense of declining independence. And that has to do again with this idea of not stranger anxiety. It has to do with the idea of there's a developing imagination, and the child is saying like, what if my mom, what if there are monsters in here? Like, I need my mom, I need my dad to help me because I'm afraid. And the capacity for imagination is what is making them feel the potential for that kind of fear. So imagination is a really good thing in a lot of ways. It opens up kids' thinking pathways, and they can really envision things. They are much more engaged by stories. They start to be able to tell stories, or at least sort of process these things in their minds. But at the same time, that capacity for processing also opens up avenues for fearful things, and that's why we see that. So that's a little bit of like why why kids can be clingy. And I think the big thing that we want to talk about today is, what do we do about it? So that's what we're going to get into. I've got 3 case studies, 3 ways to look at this. So each of these that I'm going to talk about, each of these 3 ways to handle a clingy behavior came up because of a member of our Ninja parenting community. And I'm so excited because they all come under this same kind of umbrella of clinginess, but they are 3 different situations. So the first one, so we've got 3 kids, 3 ways to handle clingy behavior. The first one is a little guy in the community. We call him Little Llama because we call his mom Mama Llama. And so naturally what follows from that is you get Daddy Llama as well. And I love sharing the kind of questions that Mama Llama comes up with. And this actually, it's really interesting because this one wasn't even a question at this point. Like Mama Llama has kind of come so far along the positive discipline kind of timeline. She's been through potty training with us. She's been through switching schools with us, relocating actually with us. And she asked some great questions, and from that we get to provide answers. And this is a case in which Mama Llama was sharing about something else, and it turned into a story of her son Little Llama being clingy. All right, so I just want to share a little bit about that. So what happened was they signed Little Llama up for a class, like a Saturday class. Little Llama's 4. And they signed him up for a class. It's going to be an enrichment class, and he was going to go to this class. And while he was in class, the parents had the opportunity to sit and talk with like a child development expert, to ask questions, I believe there might have been like pediatricians involved in this, so that the children are enjoying themselves and being enriched and meeting people and having fun. And the parents are learning, some extra cool stuff about parenting. And what happened was, Little Llama could not stand the thought of being away from whichever parent was bringing him that weekend. So if it was Mama Llama, he wanted to be with Mama Llama. He couldn't stand the thought of her leaving the room. And if it was Daddy Llama, basically same thing. He didn't want Daddy Llama to go away. He wanted to be with his mom or his dad. He was feeling very clingy, in short. And I love what they did about this. Basically, they decided that they would become parent volunteers. So their weekends to be it's for Little Llama to go to this class, they would be parent volunteers, and they would spend that time in the class. And what that meant, of course, was that they couldn't be with the parent enrichment part of this. And so Mama Llama called the parent enrichment people, or she spoke to them, she emailed them something. And they wrote back to her basically and said, "We are so impressed and proud of what you're doing for your child. Like, this is such a good way to handle clinginess, to be there for him, to show him that you can be there for him." And then they said, what we're going to do is we're going to work to get the parent enrichment as well. So I don't know if that's going to include videos or recordings or worksheets or extra time with them. I'm not 100% sure what that in the end means, but they're just, this is a case of parents really kind of rearranging their lives so that they could be there for their child in the way that their child needed them. And I just wanted to say this because especially what Mama Llama said about Daddy Llama is this is way out of Daddy Llama's comfort zone. You know, he doesn't spend a lot of time with 4-year-olds in a classroom setting being a volunteer. And he recognized how important this was for his child. So, so Mama Llama writes, it was so good that he could do that and that the teachers in this gifted enrichment class were super supportive. In fact, what they said was, it seems like you are really doing great things for little Llama. And then Mama Llama continues, the whole point of doing these enrichment classes is that he gets the chance to meet other kids, try things that excite and interest him. That's it. This is for him. And the fact that we can join him and enjoy the time, help the teacher, and give him the chance to do this is just a triple win. And I wanted to bring this up first because I think this is really a great way to look at it. Like, you will hear in your parenting journey from people who tell you, you know, you have to rip off that Band-Aid, right? Like, there's going to come a point where your child can't be with you. And so let's make that point right now. And, you know, they're going to have to get used to it anyway. And I think this is the way that we did think as a society, you know, 40 or 50 years ago, but it's changed. And the reason it's changed is because we know what works for little kids. We know that a great way to support them is to truly be there for them. So I mean, I can envision the conversation going something like, so you're frightened to be at the class by yourself? And little Llama might say, yes, I am. I want you there. And they might say, you know what? Okay, we're going to be there. We'll be in class too, and we'll get to help out and we'll get to see what you're doing, and it's going to be great. And the fact that and then little Llama says, thank goodness my parent is doing what I need. You know, they're giving me the support that I need. And I think a lot of times, so a question that people bring up frequently is, well, when are they ever going to be able to do this on their own? And I think it's a very valid question. And I would say that in my experience, which is now I've had 2.5 decades of preschool teaching and raising my own kids and getting a master's degree in early childhood education, the more time we can spend with them, helping them live through these fears, work through these fears when they're young, the quicker they are going to become more happily independent later. So it's kind of paradoxical, but you can get a child who's clingier when you sort of say, oh, nope, you got to do this on your own. Sorry, kid. And I'm remembering being in as a preschool, learning to be a preschool teacher, earning my master's degree, I was able to spend an entire semester student teaching in a first grade. And I also spent another entire semester teaching in an integrated public preschool program with one of the best teachers I've ever had the pleasure to work with. And there was a mom all that autumn who she started out by being at circle time with her son because her son just couldn't bear to not have her there. He was 3, he was starting preschool, and she worked her way back so that she sat at the door for the duration of their morning. And then she sat outside the door. And then she wasn't there all the time. She would say, you know, I'm going to be here now. And then I'm going to come say goodbye to you. And then I'm going to leave, because we don't ever want to just sort of not be there when our kids expect us to. If we can help it. Sometimes we can't help it. It's okay. And then eventually she was able to not be there anymore. And because her child had integrated, he was comfortable in this preschool setting. He'd made friends. It can seem so cloying. I mean, you know, we already sort of feel like they're stuck to us all the dang time. Like, I can't take this for another minute. And I guess what I would say is, I hope it helps to know that this is very normal. It's developmentally what happens, and that it will end. There will come a point at which you'll be able to wave goodbye and drop them off at the gifted enrichment class and go listen to the adult stuff or go do your own thing. And if you are in that right now, I'm just in a lot of empathy with you, because I remember what that felt like. And I hope this helps. Okay, so there's case study 1 about Mama Llama and Little Llama and Daddy Llama. And again, if you've got questions, post them in the chat. I really hope I can see all of the chat. My fear is that I'm not seeing that, like everything in the chat, but my hope is that I am. So I think I am going to pop it out actually. And yeah, okay. I'm just going to bring that over here. Hurrah! Okay. And so the second one is, I guess I brought up questions because I'm going to answer some if you've got any. So be sure to ask them. Just jump into the chat and ask. And the second one I'm calling a 3-year-old's declining independence, because that is what the mom who posted into our Ninja Parenting Community forums qualified this as. So I'm going to read to you from babybrains post about this. So what we have is We Turned Out Okay is a website, weturnedoutokay.com. And then at the website, there's a place that says NPC login. And when you are a Ninja Parenting community member, you use your login credentials there, and then you get access to all these forums, which are kind of behind a wall. And once you're in the forums, you do that by becoming a member of the Ninja Parenting community. You get access to all the forums. There's courses. I've actually done an entire course on clinginess based on the questions that I've been getting. So that just went in last week. And there's forums. There's like tomorrow night we're having a live members only call. So if you are a Ninja parent watching this, catch me up live tomorrow night, because we're going to be in the forums doing a live members only call at that point. And so this mom wrote into our general discussion forum, which is where a lot of questions come up if you don't know where else to put it. If it doesn't have, like, if it's not pertaining to potty training, so it's not going into that forum. It's not a success story, so you don't want to put it there. The general discussion forum gets a lot of really great questions, and this was one. Okay. So Babybrain has a 3-year-old daughter and a little, like a baby, an under 1-year-old. And her forum picture, like her profile picture, is so adorable. She's got 2 heaping children sort of asleep on her, and she's got this look on her face of like, yep, here I am. It's just the cutest picture, Babybrain. I love it. Babybrain writes, I'm starting to notice that E, my 3-year-old daughter, is leaning on us/me more than she used to. I'm not sure if it's an independence thing, and she shares some examples that she's noticed. So E always wants me or someone to come with her to go potty, not to help, but just to stand there and keep her company. She always wants us to come with her to her room to pick out her clothes in the morning. She used to just run back to her room and grab her clothes, but she's not doing that now. We're not having to do anything other than stand in the doorway while she picks the clothes out. We need to lay with her. She wants us to lay with her at night when she's going to bed. She used to ask for this every now and then, but now it's every night. Sometimes she wants me to do something for her that she used to do on her own. I do think that going to her room is partly our house. We moved to a new house in July. It's much bigger than our old one, and I think sometimes she just gets scared to be in another part of the house by herself. We've had times when we both went upstairs and she panicked when she realized she was alone. So I love this. So now we tell her if we're going upstairs or leaving the general area for a minute. But now that we've lived here for almost 8 months, I would have expected that fear to either stay the same or decrease, but it seems to be increasing. And it's funny. That's also reminding me of a 20-something friend of mine noticed a post on Facebook recently of a mom whose child was like in the sort of 18-month to 2-year-old kind of toddler phase of life, and was incredibly anxious when mom wasn't around. And what she did about it, and it was cutely done, and it was not something that is a substitute for childcare. But what she did was she made a full-sized like standee of herself, standing there, just outside the sort of area that was blocked off for this toddler, so that it looked like she was there, but she wasn't actually there. And I thought it was very funny. And but the thing that was so interesting was this 20-something friend of mine said, "Is this reasonable? Can you actually do this?" And I was like, "No, you can't, because God, what if somebody opens a door and the standee blows over? You know what I mean? Or what if?" I mean, never mind, like, just for a couple of minutes, what happens if if somebody thought, oh, this is a good idea, I'll just go and run an errand and leave my child here? I mean, I would never, ever, ever endorse that. I think, and that's not what this parent was doing. She was just kind of showing like, oh, my kid is perfectly happy when it's a standee, just as if I was there, and it was kind of funny. But that a young adult, she doesn't have any kids, would ask that question. I thought that was really interesting. That like someone who maybe doesn't have the kind of child development background that I have might not know that you shouldn't do that. So I'm officially saying, please don't do that. And so when I think about how to help baby brain, what I advised, I basically, I created a very long video. I mean, it's like 20 minutes or so, sort of that was almost a brain dump of all the things I could think of that she might want to do. And then the other interesting thing was, I was able to turn that into a course. So now I've got a full-sized course, full-fledged course in the Ninja Parenting community with like notes and links, and each module has its own forum post so people can ask questions specific to a certain module. It's really interactive and very cool. And I see we got a question. Yay, yay, yay. So I will get to that at the end. But the idea of what you can do, I really want to kind of get into this. This is what I said to Baby Brain in the initial kind of video and post that I did. So the first thing that we can do is we can show lots of empathy. So think about the difference between saying to a child, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of. Like, you can be in your room alone just fine. You don't have to worry about anything. Or even stop crying, which I don't say these things like some parent development expert, child development expert from on high. These are things I've literally done myself, regretted, and have now learned how to not do them, right? Because sometimes what we need as a parent kind of can intrude upon what we want our child, or which our child might do. So the first thing that we can do is we can show lots of empathy. And instead of saying something along the lines of, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of, there's no monsters in here, you're fine, which feels very reasonable because we know that there's no monsters, right? But because of our kids sort of developing brains and the imagination that they're developing and stuff like that, they don't know that there's no monsters, right? So being able to say to them, you're afraid, are you feeling afraid? You look afraid. And to have the child be able to either nod or acknowledge, yes, I'm feeling afraid. And then you can say, you know what, sometimes I feel afraid too. And here's what I've done about it. Or I used to feel afraid too. Specifically, I'm thinking of when one of our kids was little, and he was afraid of one particular Muppet scared the bejabbers out of him. And you could tell that he was a little older. He was probably 7 or 8 at this time. And so articulating that made him feel embarrassed. Like, who's afraid of a Muppet, right? But he finally did. He said, I don't want to watch it because because this Muppet scares me. And I think he was expecting us to basically say like, oh, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's just Muppets. And what I said was, wow, that reminds me of when I was your age and one of the Muppets scared the pants off of me. The one that scared me was that huge, there was like this huge, big sort of monstery one that would like lumber around behind. I could not watch the Muppets because of that. And I could just watch my son go, oh, thank God somebody gets it. So that's the feeling that we want to encourage in our kids, right? That we want them to understand that we understand. Validating their feelings, right? Saying it's okay to feel afraid. I understand how you're feeling. And praising when they do something on their own is, I think, a part of this. I would also say even before that, maybe so one thing that we found a lot of use with was our son, our youngest, was very afraid that there were zombies in his room and outside his window and stuff, which this is actually his room. So right out that window, he'd be like, but there's zombies out there, I just know it. And we made a little container. I just got like a water bottle, a spray bottle that just sprayed squirty bottle of water. I would occasionally put herbs in it, essential oils in it, like lavender or whatever, just because they smelled nice. And I had this little drawing that I made of it that was like a terrible stick figure zombie with his arms out, right? With a circle and a line through it, so that it basically said no zombies, to him. And he could grab the spray set right over there, right by his door, and he could grab it and he could squirt all the zombie spray that he wanted to, very hydrating in winter. And then he wouldn't have to fear the zombies, because he had done something to make them go away. And here's something he could do that's empowering for him. And and then praising when they do something on their own. Oh my gosh, you went to your room all by yourself. Good for you. Like, you must be feeling good, right? To be able to do that. And the last thing that I suggested to Baby Brain, or one of the last things, there's a lot more in the course, and I do get I got links, and I've got some more practical type ideas and books and stuff like that in there. But the last one I'm going to share with you here is when I talked to Dr. Laura Markham on We Turned Out Okay, the podcast, in episode 255. I'm going to link to that in the show notes just below this video. Right now there are no show notes, but I will do that when I'm done with the recording of it. Dr. Laura Markham is an educational psychologist, and just a force for good in the world. And I was able to ask her a question from one of our Ninja Parenting community members. And the question was, we are going through a very difficult time right now. And I see the anxiety in my child, and I don't know is there anything that I can do specifically to help? And what Dr. Laura recommended was exhilarating, thrilling horseplay. So tickle fighting, pillow fighting, always making sure that when the child says to stop, that we stop, because we need to encourage good, firm boundaries. That's how we protect kids from things like sexual abuse, to have them be able to say no, and have that no really mean no. To have other people uphold their boundaries is extremely helpful. And so, but things like pillow fighting, tickle fighting, being thrown up in the air and caught, like that kind of stuff is so thrilling for kids. And what that means is that they're learning how to deal with their fears in an exciting, fun, playful way. And so, encouraging play with you around, without you, sort of in a play date situation, encouraging just open-ended play, and then also trying to get in some of this kind of horseplay every day, or at least frequently during the week, is important and very fun. It's also really, really fun. I mean, that's where a lot of those really good memories can be made, because they're giggling, and so are we, and yeah, so that's what I would say about how to handle, like, when you feel like your child is sort of backsliding in terms of independence. Probably it's got to do with clinginess and their imaginations. And the things we can best do about that is to show empathy, validate feelings, give them something concrete that they can feel powerful over, even if it's like a flashlight or something, that if they're afraid of the dark, that they can use. And I would encourage, just like Dr. Markham, horseplay, thrilling, fun horseplay within the child's, but always remembering the child's boundaries. So that's the second one. The third one is, I love this one too. It's about a 7-year-old's fear of going upstairs alone. And so the reason I wanted this one to be last was because I wanted you to see the kind of progression, right? So we do have that stranger anxiety when they're just learning to walk, and that's how they stick with us. We do have that expanding imagination, and that's why they can feel frightened about monsters and other things like that. And then sometimes their anxieties can go a little bit beyond, what we might think of as like sort of typical, I guess. Or I think as parents, we don't really know when they might grow out of this. And sometimes it could feel, if you have a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old. So when my youngest was about 10 or 11, we'd been skiing that by then for a couple of years at this great little mountain, perfect for learning to ski, perfect for kind of a Friday ski day, basically, is what we did. And, he had lots of friends and stuff like that. But when he just sort of developed this anxiety when he and I were skiing, just the two of us. And it's interesting because it was about the time where I was starting to feel so good on skis again, after I have a tendon disorder. And there were a couple of years where I couldn't ski at all, several years. And then there were a couple of sort of like get back on your feet years where I wasn't like my usual aggressive ski self. And then there was this one year. This is really so interesting. I'm learning right now as I'm sharing this, because I don't think it was a coincidence that the year that I was like, all right, is the year that he suddenly was afraid to ski with just me, because he was afraid that I would. So he what he did was he basically tried to arrange sort of checkpoints, like stopping points for us. He would be like, okay, and we're talking about, I don't know how many vertical feet, but we're talking about, this is a run that takes about 3 minutes top to bottom if you're not stopping at all. And he was afraid that he would get out of my sight, or that I would get out of his sight. So what he was trying to do was to sort of create these stopping points. He'd be like, all right, we'll stop there, and we'll stop there, and we'll stop there. And I was like, hun, I can't promise I'm going to stop everywhere that you want me to stop. I just can't, because what if we have a miscommunication and you thought I was going to stop somewhere that I didn't? And I said, basically what I said was, how can we work this out together? So the hallmarks here are, I am not saying to him, oh, don't be afraid of that. Like, that's not something you need to worry about. What I was basically doing was acknowledging that he was worried about this, asking him to, asking him to agree, have I got the problem right here? And then saying to him, like, okay, I think this idea that you've had is a good idea, except it won't work for us. And then saying, like, what else could we do that could work? And basically what it ended up being was, he wanted me within a certain distance of him. So I was able to be out in front of him, but not so far out in front of him that he couldn't see me. Pretty much that was what he needed. That was what worked for him. And I would say once we'd done 2 or 3 runs of that, he was like, okay, I'm good. So, and he was a little older. He was probably 11 at that point. So, they're always developing, right? And sometimes we can go from the stranger anxiety to the imagination, monsters and that sort of thing, anxiety. And we can still be at a point when they're 7, 8, 9 years old, where they are worried about being in a part of the house, or that, something creeps them out about being alone in the house. And that's what happened in this particular ninja parent's case. So what she says is, and I love this, she actually says, currently we're having success with the following. And so that's such a cool way to frame it. This ninja parent isn't saying, she's framing this very positively. It's not negative. And I just love that. She writes, currently we're having success when she is afraid, my 7.5-year-old is afraid to go upstairs alone. And I'm actually, so the reason I brought this up is because I wanted to, this is about her daughter's afraid to go upstairs alone, right? And when I get to the, I guess we're getting to the what you can do part about this, like right now, because what she says is, here's something that we're finding that works. And I just love this so much. So what you can do, one thing you can do about this is you can talk with your child, right? You can validate their fears. You can help them understand that other people have these feelings as well. And then the thing that this ninja parenting community member did was she came up with a thing called a finger string, which I love this so much. I wish I had known about this when my kids were little. Currently, we're having success when she's afraid to go upstairs alone. I hold out my pointer finger. She touches it with her pointer finger and walks away, pointing at me. Between our fingers, an imaginary string is keeping us connected. Then she hustles to get her things done so she can end the separation. Or if I know it's going to be a long time, then I will go upstairs and check on her before separating again the same way. I just think this is brilliant. And I really wanted to share it with you for that reason. I think that this is one of those things that can help kids feel comfortable. They're attached by an invisible string, even when we're not there. And I guess, that's the value of being in a community like this. We get to learn, cool things from each other, basically. I did just want to say, kind of at this point, there's a woman, a doctor named Dr. Deborah McNamara, who has a whole bunch of great infographics. Actually, I'm going to link to this as well. I'm going to have to somehow remember that. I've got 2 things I want to link to. Dr. Deborah McNamara at her website has a bunch of downloads, and one of them is about what kids worry about at different ages. And in that one, which I think is so great because you can see this timeline, you can see them going from the stranger anxiety all the way out to, oh my God, I don't want to be alone and deserted at a ski hill. Not quite in that particular sense, but she talks about why these worries are happening at this point. So interesting to me. But one of the things that Dr. Deb McNamara says at the end of that is, you need to consider there may come a point, there may not, right? But there may come a point at which these anxieties feel more persistent and, quote, chronic, is what she talks about. And at that point, it might be worth it to talk to your pediatrician, to talk to, maybe see some kind of therapy for your child, just to see if that's something that can feel helpful as they are learning to confront and deal with their own anxieties, because a lot of clingy behavior comes about due to anxieties. And if you're feeling like your child is a little old, or this has been going on for years and years, and you're a little concerned about that, that's something to think about. So I just wanted to make sure to put that out there. All right, we are going to get to questions in just a few moments, because we wrapped up actually it ended up being 4 case studies, because I used one of my own child and me at the ski hill not that long ago. We're going to get to questions in just a few moments, but first, I just wanted to tell you quickly about something exciting that's going on in the Ninja Parenting community. It is leap year this year. This coming Saturday is going to be leap day. I don't know what my thing is about leap year, but I just think it's awesome. Like, this one day just stuck in, randomly, what feels randomly to me every 4 years, I guess, because it doesn't happen that often. It feels like, oh, here we are again, I actually have a friend who's like 12 years old because she was born on leap day, except of course that, she's really like, whatever, 40 something. I just think it's just I don't know. I love the sense of leap year. I think it's kind of fun. And I'm celebrating this year with an amazing deal, the kind of thing that I have never actually offered, to join the Ninja Parenting community, which is the place where all these questions come from. And what I'm offering is 50% off an annual membership. Usually memberships are, at this point, $500, and I am offering it for 50% off that, half the cost, for a whole year of peace of mind. Some of the benefits of annual membership are things like you are eligible for 4 private parent coaching calls each year that you're a member. That is not available to monthly members. It's only available to annual members. And within each of those, I take you through a whole coaching exercise to like figure out what you need the most help with and how to start working on that. And I mean, parents come out of those calls like, oh, thank God, it's going to be okay. There's a lot of tears in those calls, because we're doing something that we're helping parents confront their fears. I'm helping you confront your fears. And that can be very scary. But what we do is we figure out a way forward, and it feels so good. So 4 private parent coaching calls per year, everything in the forums. I do twice monthly live members only calls, and there's courses and challenges, including the course that I just did about clingy behavior and how to confront it and how to deal with it. Lots and lots of stuff in there. You can join now at this awesome rate, but only through Monday, March the 2nd. At that point, the leap year special is going to be done. So please come and join us. It would be such a pleasure to work with you in there. WeTurnedOutOK.com/join NPC is the link, or you can click the link right in the show notes that I will put here. Or in any email that I send. I pretty much always have a link to WeTurnedOutOK.com/join NPC. Usually it's not for half off the annual cost, and that's what it is right now. So I would really welcome you into the community. I love working with the parents in there, and I think you should become one. Okay, so questions. We've got questions, or at least a question from Amy. Hi, Amy. It's so good to have you here. I'm very excited that you joined us today. Okay, Amy writes, my son is 6 and watched his dad get arrested for a DUI in front of our house. Oh, honey. Oh, my gosh, that must have been terrifying. I've also now moved out, and he just experienced 2 surgeries to fix a broken arm, so he's dealing with a lot of trauma. Yes. Oh, hugs to you all. Oh, my gosh. He's picking his skin from his ears, face, fingers, arms, and legs until they bleed because he's anxious, right? He won't sleep anywhere but in my bed. I have full custody, and he's always afraid to be alone. He's 6 years old. He fears monsters and asks me to protect him all the time. How can I help give him confidence and a feeling of security? Well, first of all, Amy, let me say just how proud of you that I am that that you're looking for a solution, and that you're doing it so positively. I think, you know, I can imagine how frustrating it is for you to like always have him in your bed, right? Um, and how worried you must be about him. And I just, all I can do is send, um, lots of compassion and empathy and huge hugs your way. But the good thing is that's not all I can do, because I can give you some suggestions, right? Um, I wonder at 6 how much of this he's been able to verbalize, and I would love it if you wanted to say something in the chat if I'm asking questions just to get a little bit more information, and you want to contribute a little bit more information. Like, can he be verbal about this at all, or is it more of a sort of he's just like always wanting to hug you and sort of physically be with you, and he's not comfortable talking about this stuff at all? I'm going to kind of go on the assumption that there's really somewhere in between, right? So that maybe sometimes he's okay to talk about it in a quiet moment, but then there are sometimes where he feels so much that he's screaming, maybe, or he's just clinging to you and crying, and he, as you say, he's picking his skin. And poor guy, oh my goodness. And so I think the first thing that I would suggest, this is really making me think of one of our Ninja Parenting community members who, she was not with her son at the time, but he was in an accident. He was in a car accident where everybody was okay. But for months afterwards, her 2-year-old son kept saying, "Why did daddy crash daddy's car?" And it wasn't even daddy's fault. I mean, it's like such a killer. Um, and what I counseled her and what I'm going to counsel you is, if he asks questions, if he's talking at all, try and be very receptive to that, even though it feels like, how can he possibly want to talk about this again? What they need to do is play things out in their minds, um, and ask those questions and keep getting the supportive answers, like again and again and again. And that is one thing that can help, is if he's able to ask questions and verbalize. So you're right, he's not comfortable talking about it at all. I try to have periods where we draw out our feelings, but mostly he just wants to be by me. Okay, so drawing out was actually going to be the next thing that I suggested, was how can this come out in play? Like Dr. Laura talks about in episode 255 of We Turned Out Okay. Drawing is one way to play. And so if there's going to be any kind of drawing, what I would recommend and what I've seen work really well is completely open-ended. So we're not making judgments about what anybody's drawing. We're just allowing things to come out. So I've seen kids draw things, and I'm smiling because the pictures were adorable, but they were of, if a kid was confronting something like yelling or having their own anger, sometimes what you'd see would be drawings that didn't look violent, right? Because 4 or 5-year-old kids, sometimes they don't draw very well, but that had a real like lot of dashed lines, a lot of sort of aggressive motions, I guess I would say. And sometimes they were couched in like a space fight or something like that. So kids will find ways to kind of almost subvert their emotions into something that like we adults might think of as appropriate. So if anybody in his life is sort of like, oh, it's like, you shouldn't draw about that because you should be forgetting about it or something like that. Like that, I would actually suggest that kind of the opposite, that instead, what I found works really well is to say to a kid, "Hey, what are you drawing?" and be open to any answer, and not almost, but physically repeat back their answer. "Oh, so you're drawing a picture of a dead bird because it fell out of the tree?" You know what I mean? Like, no matter how upsetting it might feel to hear those words come out of your child's mouth, um, you know, they need to be able to get those words out. And really, a lot of what it comes back to is kind of almost helping them forget about themselves and be able to say something that that they might not have been able. That's why drawing can work so well. If it's not going to be drawing and it's not going to be talking, can you institute some? So I guess first of all, I would say he just wants to be by you, and I think right now, I don't know how long ago this happened, but from what you're saying, it doesn't sound like it happened particularly long ago. I think having him be by you is a wonderful gift that you can give him, and having him know that that's okay. Basically, I think this might be a time of kind of helping him through this, and once you start to see him picking at his face less, once you start to see him. Not needing you quite so much, which could be a little while. Maybe that's a time that you can sort of how can I say this? He's just got so much going on right now. I feel like now maybe isn't the time, and you're free to disagree if you want. I'm not trying to tell you, how to think about this, but or if you disagree, it's perfectly okay. My idea is that instead of sort of thinking like, okay, instead of thinking, I'm sorry, I'm trying to really get this right for you. Instead of thinking, God, when is this going to end? I just, I just can't have him near me anymore. Try to, and again, huge sympathy. I can't imagine how difficult this must be having had all this trauma for yourself as well. But try to think like, okay, he just needs me right now, and he won't need me someday, but right now he needs me. And as you're doing that, can you build in some more of that exhilarating horseplay? Maybe with the broken arm, I think that could be a little bit tough. But can he run? I mean, can there be chasing games outside? Can there be something where he can he even? I don't know how I remember when mine were 6, I could still do this, but soon after I couldn't anymore. But like, can you be on all fours and he be riding you as if you were like a horse or something like that? I guess wheelbarrows aren't going to work right now because like sometimes what we can do is we can pick up their ankles and let them sort of wheelbarrow themselves along like on their hands, but that's definitely not going to work for you. But keep it in mind for the future. I think it's really just that giving him that space and time to heal, and sort of helping him get outside of himself or almost forget that he's feeling self-conscious or worried, just sharing about his thoughts and feelings on those events, because only when we can get them out can they be gone. I should have said this at the beginning. I hope that you're in a position to consider finding a good therapist, because I think that is a lot of trauma, and those kinds of anxieties, while we parents can do a lot to alleviate them, it might be a good idea to have an expert's suggestions, or even there's a thing called play therapy actually, which I have seen work wonders with kids. Like, so the idea that they are getting out their trauma through play with a qualified therapist, that might be an idea for you. I just want you to know how I wish I could reach this computer right now and give you a real hug. That's the level of sympathy that I'm feeling for you. So one last question from Amy. She writes, I'm totally happy with him in my bed. We snuggle and read books every night. My concern mostly is how do I heal those traumas and calm him enough to stop at the picking? I think that, and then you're right, he was in play therapy, but the therapist wasn't very good. We saw him for 3 months and didn't get anywhere. Currently looking for a better therapist and fighting my insurance. Yes, I understand that feeling as well. So in our home, since the last week in January, we've had, I would say at least 3 huge, like seismic shifts in our lives. And one of them I can talk about. One of our sons had emergency gallbladder surgery last week. He was in the hospital for 3 days. He came out of it so incredibly well. There were some complications, but he did come out of it just incredibly well, and so proud of him. He healed up really quickly, which is, that can happen when you're a teenager. And he is now, sort of resuming his life. But that, like, when he was getting better, that's when I was getting worse, right? So I feel like the wheels came off my own train sort of at the end of the week when I was seeing him well, and I started to feel really anxious about, like, the rapidity of this happening. Like, we had a plan to take care of this, and now that was all in the trash. And as I say, we are also dealing with 2 other very big, very seismic shifts that are ongoing. So I like the whole HMO, the whole insurance thing is just it can make you want to scream. And I again so feel you for that. And Amy writes, yes, me too. It's so hard on parents. It is. Oh my gosh. And so that's about the anxiety, right? It is so hard on parents. So as you are working through all of this, I mean, you write, my concern is, how do I heal those traumas and calm him enough to stop picking? So I think the healing is going to come from him. Like, we can't, as much as I wish I could, put my hands on my child's abdomen and stop that gallbladder from being a problem. I couldn't. All we can do, and I think this is the best that we can do, is to be there for them, let them share with us, help them say. So if he does say to you something like, and then if he shares some detail about watching his dad, I know how hard that could be for you to hear about, but for him to be able to have you say, that sounds like you were feeling really afraid, or that sounds like you were feeling really frustrated, or something like that, because there's that validation there. So it's really, it's a marathon, not a sprint, I think is the way to look at this. He will get better. He will heal. It just traumatic events take some time to heal from. And I think you're giving him the most wonderful gift that you could ever give him, which is you love having him in bed to snuggle with and read. And you are, good with him sort of near you. And you're finding a therapist for him that works, and you're fighting that dang HMO, and you're showing up every day for him. And that is what will help. And as I say, it may take a while, but that's what's gonna, help with the healing. I really, really, really would love to work more closely with you, Amy. And I think that this is something that, as it's going on, I just hope that whether it's with me, whether you, for example, join the Ninja Parenting community, or whether you have other outlets for your own healing, I want you to pay attention to that too, to have some compassion for yourself, and to recognize that, like, this is a hard thing that you're going through. This is what's helped me, is to be able to say, we are going through some really hard stuff right now. And the most important things are that we have each other, that like, our son is okay. and we're going to work through these things together. And as time goes on, it will get better. So thank you so much, Amy, for your questions. I hope this has been helpful. Again, please come and join the Ninja Parenting community and work with me, because I would love to work a little bit more with you, or a lot more with you, really. And I would say that to anybody watching this. I think we can all feel, and it's true, that what we're dealing with is tough stuff. And clingy behavior is no exception to that. And so I'm really glad that you've watched this. I really hope you've gotten some help out of it. And if you need more help, come and work with me in the community. I just want to say thank you so much to everybody for being here, for watching, for listening. And I think I'm just going to end this one by saying thank you so much for that. And actually, Amy writes, thanks for everything, Karen, and bless your son. I would say the same to you, Amy. All right, cheers, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for watching, and we will talk to you soon. Hopefully see you in the forums. Okay, bye.